Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here for the city's 8th annual Emergency Preparedness Town Hall Forum. We have a very interesting and informative evening planned for you. We have 3 distinguished speakers with us tonight. Dr. Dennis Maletti, a resident of Rancho Mirage and a nationally recognized expert in emergency preparedness. Mark Benthian, he is the Executive Director of Earthquake Country Alliance and Director for Communications with the Southern California Earthquake Center. Jay Allen, he is the Director of Communications with the California Emergency Management Agency. I am sure the combined knowledge and expertise of these 3 speakers will provide invaluable information to you as you take steps to prepare. I would like to thank Karen Greenbaum, a member of the city's Community Emergency Preparedness Commission, and her commission associates for spearheading the creation of the earthquake preparedness film that you are going to see tonight. She unfortunately could not be here this evening, and I was talking about the cloth bag. In the cloth bag that was on your chair is a DVD of the film for you to take along with other preparedness brochures. You'll find the film very, very interesting. In the lobby area are several vendors that are selling emergency preparedness goods and services. I urge you to pay them a visit and to take steps to become better prepared. It's going to happen one of these days. Lastly, the members of the Rancho Mirage Community Emergency Preparedness Commission are here and will be introduced by our Master of Ceremonies. And now, I would like to welcome our Master of Ceremonies, and according to the contract we signed with his agent, he has insisted that I introduce him as the handsome, debonair, intelligent Patrick Evans. Mr. Evans is well known by all of us as the Chief Meteorologist for Channel 2 News. Thank you, Patrick. You can take it from here.
My agent will be proud. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. Thank you all for being here. This is an important topic, obviously, with the significant earthquakes in Haiti and in Chile. It is something that is on all of our minds, and of course all we have to do is stare across the freeway and see that fault line and know that we're due one day, and it is forums like this that will allow us to be prepared. And I'm delighted to be here this evening because I am a proud resident of Rancho Mirage, and I am also woefully unprepared in case of an earthquake, so I'm going to take heavy notes tonight. That bag that you have on your chair, as the mayor mentioned, also has a checklist. It has a wealth of information. I want you to grab that and take it home with you. Before we get started tonight, I want to introduce the folks that made this all possible. In addition to the mayor this evening, we have council members Ron Mipos and Richard Kite here. Gentlemen, if you would. And I saw City Manager Patrick Pratt come in a little bit earlier. Patrick, if you would. Thank you, sir. And let me now introduce you to the Rancho Mirage Community Emergency Preparedness Commission. First, starting with Chairman Fred Sanchez. Fred. Michael Adams. Roger Berry. Douglas Bornstein. Del Francis. Mike Potter, who I don't believe is here this evening, but we can applaud him anyway. Michael Selwood, who happens to be one of my neighbors. Deanie Shaver. Les Thomas. Also. Oh, that's right. He's making sure that people get parked. So thank him and tip him on the way out. And Commissioner Gail Tissier as well. Gail. And in the back of the room, we should give a round of applause to the gentleman who is in charge of emergency services here, the Emergency Services Coordinator for the City of Rancho Mirage, Scott Morgan. Scott. What we're about to share with you is a film that has been divided up into 7 parts. It was planned, designed, executed by the Commission, but it was not possible to do this without a Rancho Mirage resident with whom you are all familiar. And I just don't have enough words in my vocabulary to describe for you Kay Ballard. She is a comedian, she is an actress, she's an author. She wrote the book, How I Lost 10 Pounds in 53 Years. I'm working on that plan myself. She is actually the star of the film you're about to see. She is the narrator of this film. She could not be here tonight, but I think we owe her a debt of gratitude and a thank you. So let's give Kay a round of applause. Kay puts her heart and soul into Rancho Mirage, and that's why she was part of this project, and we really appreciate it. As I said, the film that you're about to see is brand new, and you have a DVD copy to take home. Show your neighbors. If you're living in an HOA, make sure that the association has a copy that they can show to the people who live in your association. It's very important information. It is basically 7 steps, and what we want to do tonight to break it down and make it a little more digestible for you is we're going to show you each of the 7 segments of the film, and we're going to stop after each segment, and we're going to take about 8 to 10 minutes for questions on each segment. There are going to be microphones roving about the room. Who are the folks with the microphones? Just to raise your hands. These folks will come to you. Just stand up or raise your hand if you have a question. And we will get our panel of experts to address that question. We will do so for each of the 7 segments of the film. And that way you'll have a real good idea when you leave here tonight what this film is trying to impart to you, and you can take that information home with you. Once again, thank you very much for being here. Are you prepared to see the film? Yeah. Very good. Let's dim the lights and start with segment 1.
Rancho Mirage offers an abundant amount of sunshine and beauty, a charming and exquisite quality of life to enjoy, with clear skies and breathtaking sunsets. It's easy to see why so many people call Rancho Mirage their dream destination. No matter where you live on this planet, Mother Nature is having you prepare for one of her challenges. California is no exception. Here is where we prepare for earthquakes. Hi, I'm Kay Ballard, and I live in Rancho Mirage, but most of you have seen me in every restaurant around the valley. I'm happy to be here. You know that I was so lucky to find Rancho Mirage as my permanent home. We are so privileged today to have a man who goes all over the world to help people how to prepare for disasters. And he's an expert, Dr. Dennis Milletti, and he lives here in Rancho Mirage. Dr. Dennis Milletti.
Scientists have just completed a series of studies that give us brand new information about the earthquake we face in Southern California. And that information is going to be shared with you here. The city is going to make recommendations to you about how you get ready for that earthquake based on the new information. November 2008, U.S. Geological Survey scientists state the most likely large earthquake in California will affect Southern California, the Coachella Valley, and Rancho Mirage. Rancho Mirage may shake for up to 2 minutes. People in the Coachella Valley and Rancho Mirage should be prepared for the shaking and be ready to be on their own for 7 to 10 days. There's one thing to remember. What we need to do is get ready for that earthquake, not the ones we've experienced. And we're lucky to have all that new scientific information. Step 1, secure your stuff.
Reducing or eliminating hazards throughout your home, workplace. Conduct a hazard hunt to help identify and fix things such as unsecured televisions, computers, bookcases, furniture, and unstrapped water heaters. They can be secured with flexible nylon straps and buckles for easy removal and relocation. Securing these items now will help to protect you tomorrow. In the kitchen, unsecured cabinet doors fly open during earthquakes, allowing glassware and dishes to crash to the floor. Hook and eye latches are great and very convenient and not so expensive. Gas appliances should have flexible hoses so they don't tear out of the wall when shaking occurs. That will reduce the risk of fire. Secure refrigerators to the walls to reduce the chance of the refrigerator bouncing around and possibly hitting someone during the shaking. Objects on open shelves and tabletops and display stands, collectibles, pottery objects, and lamps can become deadly projectiles. Use Velcro or earthquake gel to secure breakables and move heavy items to lower shelves. Hanging objects. Mirrors, framed pictures, and other objects should be hung from earthquake hooks so they can't bounce off the walls. Pictures and mirrors can also be secured at their corners with earthquake putty. Only soft art, such as tapestries, should be placed over beds and sofas. Large furniture like pianos and beds can be secured to your wall invisibly by using heavy fishing line, so your home can still stay attractive but secure.
We've brought together a few of the state, if not the nation's, leading experts to talk to the people in Rancho Mirage. Dr. Lucy Jones is the director of the U.S. Geological Survey Center here in Southern California.
You have to consider earthquakes as part of your future. That does not mean you have to leave. Earthquakes can be lived through, but you need to be ready for them. You need to secure your own space. Look at the house you own and make it as secure as you can. You can probably do something to both make the structure stronger and secure the contents. Go into your living room and look around the room. Think of that strong shaking and think about what's falling on the floor. Can you afford to lose it? Can you afford to have it hit your head? And can you keep it from falling? All of those probably have a pretty concrete answer. It's not rocket science, it's really plain common sense. If you want to live here, learn to live with earthquakes.
That's segment one, fairly self-explanatory. Secure your stuff. Do we have any questions anybody would like to ask of our panel of experts? We have a question back here. Over here on my left.
Well, my first question would be, since there are a lot of older people here, we saw vendors with supplies, are there people who, like maintenance people or people who can be hired to come in and help you secure your items?
Yes, there are some of the vendors who are here actually do that type of work. One is Safety Proof out in the hall. In fact, they did your home, and they actually did my kitchen. They put those latches in. So there aren't that many that actually come into your home and do that work. So that is one opportunity you have.
And this film is a great example of you taking the notes on this and taking the, if you can't do it yourself, hire that handy person as well, using and based on just this film.
Absolutely. And there are vendors out front, and there are, as we said, just to reiterate, there are vendors who will not only give you the supplies, but they can actually come to your home, do a home audit, identify the best way to secure all of the items in your home, and then actually provide you with that service. And they're here tonight. We had it done at the television station, and there's a lot of stuff that can fly off the walls at a TV station. So they were in there for about 4 days securing various things.
Too, while you can hire someone to do this, a lot of it is not that complicated to do. Some of it is just moving something that's heavy to a lower location. And some of it is really not, it's putting some Velcro on some things that you really can do.
I like that Velcro idea because then I don't have to pick up the stuff and dust around it. You can just sort of let it collect.
Absolutely, and the cat can't knock it over either. So, any other questions? Yes.
Where do you get the supplies to secure some of the things in your home, like mirrors and art and glass?
Hardware stores,
so
the vendors out
stores
front.
like Home Depot have all those types of straps and the special hooks for your mirrors and your heavy objects on the walls. Also, the vendors outside do.
And there is really a wealth of information and a wealth of products available. So take advantage of the fact that it's all here in one place tonight before you leave. Outside in the lobby, as you head out, you're going to find a lot of people who can give you the answer to these questions. Anybody else before we move on to segment 2? Yes, down here in front, we're going to need a microphone.
While the microphone's coming up, in your bags, there's a booklet called Putting Down Roots in Earthquake Country, and the 7 steps are in this booklet. And so some additional information is already in your bags for you on these steps. Step 1 is on page 14 and talks about some of the actions.
If you would stand up to ask your question just so we can hear you.
Thank you. I enjoy coming to this event every year, and I like the fact that you have this film and it's in segments and that we're doing question and answer period. It's more organized. My question is, when I'm looking at all these wonderful products, what kind of period of test do they go through that before they even get on the marketplace to be sold to the general public? In other words, have they really been tested? You know, just like our medicine, when medicine gets developed, and sometimes it's on the market for 2 years, and then after that we find that it's not good for us, and then they take it off. So I'm curious about the testing period. Thank you.
I do know that the products that are sold at the Home Depot and some of the vendors here did have a lot of testing. You know, they put it through how much weight can it support, and it even says on the boxes how much weight each strap can support, so that if you have something that's heavier than one strap that can support it, that you use a second strap. So all that information's on the materials. It's a really good question. It's really important. But also, it's really pretty simple stuff too. It's not like it's very complicated materials that are really cutting edge. It's basic straps that you need.
Right, and some of these firms that, as Mark mentioned, that actually do this, that you can hire to do this. I mean, they know what they're doing with that, and it's much like, movers know how to pack a moving van the best way. These folks know how to do this in the best way possible.
Yes, another question right here.
Doesn't Riverside County, don't they have some people, I've seen it on television, and they're advertising that they'll come out and proof your house for earthquake?
Yes, and that's one of the companies that's up front. They're a private company. It's not a county service. It's a private company. Safety Proof is one of those companies. There are others, but I know that they're one of the companies that does that kind of work. Anybody else before we go on to segment 2?
Do something tonight when you go home. And that could mean moving something heavy that might fall on you if the earthquake were to happen tomorrow. Because the earthquake really could happen tomorrow. And if you've done something tonight that protects you, you're going to be happy for that. So do something when you get home.
And let me say why you should. And some of you may already have done a lot. But the epidemiological research investigating how and why people in California receive injuries in earthquakes concludes that most people receive most injuries by being hit with objects in their home that fly and hit them in the head or leg or belly or somewhere like that. So all those familiar items in your house that you use and enjoy looking at and are in your cupboards, that's the major source of earthquake injuries in our state.
Yes, question down here. Stand up if you would so everybody can see you.
Would you explain to me where we should be if an earthquake occurs in terms of the house?
I think we're going to get We will, and that's coming up in its own segment in the film, and I think you'll enjoy it. Do you mind waiting for that?
We're going to go over each segment individually, and that is one specific topic that is covered in one of the upcoming segments.
And we promise if you have a question in that segment, you go first.
Following the viewing of the entire film, we'll still have time for some more questions and answers. So if anything remains unanswered by the film itself, you will have an opportunity to have that issue addressed. Okay? Everybody good? Let's move along and watch segment 2.
Step 2, make and practice preparedness plans.
Planning for an earthquake or other emergencies is not much different from planning a party or a vacation. Get together with your family or housemates to plan now what each person will do before, during, and after. By planning now, you will be ready. Make sure that your plans include who will be in charge and the director of your plan. Practice middle-of-the-night plans that should include making sure everyone stays in bed with their heads covered with pillows. Keep a flashlight and sturdy shoes in the dresser next to the bed, not under your bed, as they will be shaken away. Sleep with blinds, drapes, or shades drawn to minimize flying shattered glass.
You know, it was Dwight Eisenhower when he was president who once said, emergency plans are useless, but emergency planning is essential because it familiarizes the people who develop the plan with what they're going to face in a very unfamiliar circumstance.
Pretty straightforward. Planning's important. Any questions on that? The sort of thing that you might want to include specifically in the plan? You have this panel of experts tonight at your disposal. Take advantage of them. I have a question that I'll ask to the panel because this is something that we haven't done in our house, but after an earthquake, there should always be a specific place in the house where you gather everybody, and if possible, including pets, because you want to make sure that they can't get out. Correct?
No, I think that's a bad idea. And
that's why I asked the question.
Let me tell you why. After the earthquake we go through, no one will want to be in their house. We'll all be outside, on the golf course, in our front or backyard, etc. So the assumption that you'd still be willing to be in your house is a wrong one. The social psychological research that's been done, and there's been a lot, knows that people enjoy spending time out from under roofs that were creaking and cracking, particularly knowing about aftershocks.
Let me just add on that to make sure it's clear, though, that you're not talking about going outside during the shaking.
Oh, no.
Right.
Or not. So if you're inside, going outside actually puts you in the line of fire of things falling off your house or the glass and everything. So, but after the shaking has stopped, then go outside to meet up with your family, your neighbors, your pets.
Right, and that's where that family communication plan and planning comes in. It's similar to, we used to do a fire drill in the house. It's the same sort of type of plan. Have a place where you and your family are going to be in a safe place, and also extend that plan. And even though there may be some communication issues with telephone lines and cell lines down, still have some type of game plan to have folks in other parts of the country, friends, relatives, to let them know that you're safe as quickly as possible.
How many people here, this is a question for you all, have people who will want to know if you're okay after an earthquake, right? And they're probably not going to be able to reach you by phone, nor you them, right away. They actually don't turn on the local phone lines first, they turn on the long distance lines. And so if you have an out-of-state contact that you and people that you want to get in touch with know to call, set up in advance, then you call that person and you kind of relay messages. So that's really important for both letting people who live with you here know you can connect, also letting people in other parts of the country know that you're okay.
So to reiterate, when you're making this family plan, the gather point should be outside of the house.
After the quake.
After the quake.
And you should have a gather point. So how many of you live with someone else? Okay, and how many of you who live with someone else from time to time, they're away shopping or doing something in your home or vice versa? Raise your hand. Okay, good. If the earthquake struck then, are they going to come home to you, or are you going to go to where you know they are? An element of the plan is to decide what your game plan is if that should happen.
Depends on how bad the store is damaged, I guess, when my wife is there after the earthquake. That's where she'll be, I feel certain.
Mr. Evans.
Yes, we have a question.
I'm just wondering, I'm from Washington, D.C., and since 9/11, there are plans, if dire things happen, that there are areas that the population is supposed to go to. Does Rancho Mirage have anything like that in case of an earthquake? Are there any plans by the city itself for areas that people would go to, especially if you're stranded in your car or something like that?
To the best of my knowledge, the answer to your question is the Emergency Preparedness Commissioners are meeting in a week or two and beginning to address different elements of a citywide strategic plan that may or may not end up being in that plan, but I think everything that one could put in a plan is going to be considered. But by and large, we know what human beings do. And knowing about our city, I know where people are going to be. People are going to congregate on the golf courses that we have, because that's open space and you can be there and feel comfortable there that no aftershock is going to cause damage.
We have a question
large
here.
Open spaces.
Thank you. Is it a good idea to keep one car in the driveway in case the garage door gets askew and you can't get out if you want to, or not? Is it a good idea to keep one car outside all the time?
It's reasonable. It's not a bad idea.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Except check with the rules of your HOA first.
Yeah, well, after we do that, thank you.
Because if the car that is outside gets towed, it will also be not as useful following the shaking. Yes, we have.
Thank you. I wasn't sure about the aftershock. Okay, now we have the earthquake hit. We're inside. We stay tucked in. Everything quits, and we run outside. But how about aftershocks? Shouldn't we? Do we
Once
run
you're
back
outside,
inside again?
be prepared for aftershocks. And if you start to feel strong shaking, because there could be an earthquake larger than even like the Northridge earthquake as an aftershock of a southern San Andreas earthquake here. That's a really strong earthquake and could knock you down if you're standing up. So if you start to feel shaking and you're outside, get down on the ground before the earthquake knocks you down. But be prepared for the aftershocks that will be many and large for days to weeks to come.
So I'm understanding also that we don't have to worry about the kind of earthquake that opens up the ground and you fall in. It's a sliding type of
thing,
right?
There are actually no earthquakes that open up the ground and in very deep chasms. Earthquakes don't happen that way. There are little cracks that can happen because ground settles, but on the fault itself, it doesn't open up. Otherwise, it would just move and you wouldn't have the shaking that happens because of the stress pushing on each side and snapping like your fingers. So they don't open up, they rub side to side. Anyway, that's a lot of details, but we don't have to worry about that where you are.
We have a question in the back, and then we'll come back to you, sir. So stay.
In addition to the answer that you gave the lady about a meeting place that's going to be decided in about a week, if we bring our animals in the animal carriers, is that going to be okay to do that?
I think that's one of the things the commission has yet to decide. Is that one of the issues you guys are going to be working on?
I think I can answer that because I sit in on the commission meetings from time to time. There are no plans in the city of Rancho Mirage for an evacuation center. It may happen that plans emerge, but I wouldn't assume that we'd have any set up in our community.
I will say, from our experience with the Governor's Office of Homeland Security Emergency Services and now the Emergency Management Agency, and dealing with the fire situations over the past few years, and I think Dr. Maletti can reiterate some of the psychological factors, but people want to have their pets with them. We have made it a point to set up shelters, pet shelters, near human shelters and in many cases right next door, because we feel it greatly enhances people's participation and getting them to do what we need them to do to evacuate from danger.
Yeah, he's correct. And the evacuation centers that eventually will be set up in the Coachella Valley, including Rancho Mirage, and set up by the NGOs, non-government organizations like the American Red Cross, Kalima, etc., will occur and begin to be put in place in the scenario that the state and the feds did for us about 5 or 6 days after the event. And so your question about will they let you 5 or 6 days after the event bring your pet, the odds are resoundingly yes, but it took decades for government to get that people want to take their pets with them.
Yeah, let me just add that probably most of you are not going to have to go to a shelter after an earthquake. Don't plan on that. Your houses are probably going to be livable, even in a big earthquake. Most of you probably live in a single-story wood frame home of some sort, either it's standalone or a duplex or something like that. And those are, even in a big shaking, those are among the best types of structures in the world for earthquakes. So most likely you'll be able to stay in your home or maybe go somewhere like even a hotel or go, friends or something like that. The shelters are going to be overwhelmed with people who really have to be there because they have nowhere else to go. So the more that you're able to be on your own in your own home, the better you'll be, and the better that the whole community, Coachella Valley, will be able to.
I saw a couple of hands up. There's, yes, here.
Will cellular phones be functioning?
Probably not. Phones probably won't work.
Yeah.
However, satellite phones will.
The thing with your cellular phones is that even if all the towers are functioning and everything's, the technology is there, too many people will be trying to use them at the same time. And we're seeing this happen in small earthquakes where everyone's just calling to see, did you feel it? That it overwhelms the system for what it's designed to do, even with the text messaging. Although I would recommend that all of you, if you don't know how to text message, learn how, because that may be one way that you will be able to communicate with others when you can't make an actual phone call.
We saw this after the I-35 bridge collapse in Minneapolis. The cell phone system was completely overwhelmed in the Twin Cities area immediately after. But one of the things we do, and we'll get to it later with some of the plans for recovery, one of the things our agency does is work with the private sector and the telecom industry to help maneuver and get that portable cell capability back to an area. And we do have plans for that. But again, that does nothing for the immediate 15 minutes, half hour, 1 day after the incident.
Yes, question here, and then Fred's got one.
You mentioned in the beginning of this the specific Rancho Mirage. Does that mean that we are in more danger than the other cities in the valley? That's the first question. I have a second.
Absolutely not.
Good.
Every city in the valley's in the same boat.
Okay.
Or
and
valley.
The second question, can you tell, I heard a talk at one point about the valley being more in danger of liquefaction. And can you tell us what that is and if we are? Thank you.
Sure. Liquefaction is a scary sounding word, perhaps. It doesn't mean that the ground's going to turn to water and be liquid. But basically, when there is water within the ground, when the ground starts to shake, the water is able to kind of percolate up between the grains of the sand. And it doesn't become like muddy per se, but it reduces the strength of the ground to hold up your structure. And it's not going to sink in like quicksand, but it can tilt or settle. And that's not good for your house. It's all the connections it has to power and gas and water and such. That's really a lot of the hazard. Now, yes, any low-lying area is more prone to liquefaction, but the water table here isn't that high usually, and so you probably aren't going to have so much. But you're going to have very strong shaking, like it said, for 2 minutes or more shaking than any of you have ever experienced before, and for longer than you've experienced, and that's going to be the major source of the damage.
Some of the new research shows that some parts of the valley could experience liquefaction. And as I recollect, it's not Rancho Mirage.
Yay.
I just had a question, and again, on what would be the safest place to be if you're feeling, the beginnings of a rumbling. Like, for instance, if you're outside in your backyard, you're in your swimming pool. Should you run outside, or should you run back in your house and go under the table? Like,
if you're outside, stay outside. If you're inside, stay inside. And then we'll talk more about how to protect yourself at step 5 coming up.
What happened to your pool? I'm just wondering, like in an earthquake.
Well, sometimes the water will slosh out in very large ways, and maybe even flood your house. It could crack the lining of the pool out.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Remember, we are going to have a full question and answers. We should probably get on to segment 3. So let's do that, and we still have plenty of time for questions and answers, okay? So let's go ahead and see segment 3.
Step 3, put supplies in kits, backpacks, and containers. We've got Mark Benthian, who's the Director of Public Education and Outreach for the Southern California Earthquake Center at the University of Southern California.
Being in Rancho Mirage, being in the desert where it can be very hot in the summer, of course, you need more water than we may recommend in other parts of California. So it's really good to have at least 18 gallons per person to both be for drinking water as well as for sanitation, for keeping yourself cool if it's hot, and to have that at home and have, in many formats so you can have stored water.
Living in Rancho Mirage, you will need more supplies than just kits. You would need extra supplies so you can make sure you have backpacks and storage containers. Make sure your supplies are in accessible locations at home, at work, or in your vehicle, or where you spend most of your day. Preparedness supplies should also be maintained outside in case your building is badly damaged. Backpacks or other small bags are best for your supplies, so you can take them with you if you have to evacuate. Having emergency supplies readily available, you can reduce the impact of an earthquake or other emergencies.
A lot of experts have given a lot of thought to what should be in those kits. Get the list they've developed. But a more fun way to approach it, and a much more personal way to approach it, is what I did. I imagined that I was going camping in the middle of the Mojave Desert, all alone, for 10 days. And I thought, if I were going camping in the middle of the desert, in the middle of summer, what would I want with me? Would I want something to give me shade to be in? Would I want food to eat? Would I want things to drink, etc.? And that's what I put together for my earthquake emergency supplies.
The vendors out front will have a full list of the supplies. Any questions about that? Yes. Let's get a microphone over to... Okay, well, let's go back there first. We need a microphone over here.
This is a question from before, but I've heard that the San Andreas Fault goes right along the rim of the mountains. Others said it goes over near Joshua Tree. Where exactly is the center of the San Andreas Fault, and how wide is it physically?
Well, the width of the fault is actually very narrow. I mean, you're talking about a boundary between two blocks of the Earth. So the fault itself is something of a plane, of a line. Now, it's over there on the north side of the 10 and cuts down over past Indio down towards the Salton Sea. And then it continues up through the Banning Pass here up to San Bernardino and on up the coast. Not here. Well, not in this part of Rancho Mirage now.
When you drive through Whitewater, if you look down, if you could see the dirt under your car, you would see the San Andreas Fault, because right there the interstate is on top of it.
Okay, question here and then in the back.
You mentioned we should have 18 gallons per person of water. How often do we have to rotate that water? Is there a longevity period for water?
There is, and it depends on what you're storing the water in. So there are, you can go to your grocery store and buy bottled water and store it that way, and that has a limited shelf life because of the plastic will corrode over time. And it says on the bottle usually how long that's good for. There are other forms of water storage that will last for 5 years. I have one of these big blue barrels, holds 55 gallons of water. I just have out in my garage, and that like I said, it's a higher grade plastic and it will last for a long time.
And to take that to the next step, all the other supplies too that may be perishable, some of the food, obviously, the batteries, have a regular plan to check those at regular intervals.
And what you do is you drink the water and buy new water and just kind of keep if you have just a store-bought water.
Right.
In the back?
Yeah. We have a lot of senior citizens that are living in a senior complex. How do we, as civilians, help these people in case of an earthquake where they can't run out if they're handicapped?
Well, the first thing is everyone who can be prepared, because that frees up resources of the first responder community in and of itself. So that, to me, is the very first thing that all of us can do.
Right, and then that complex should have its own set of supplies that perhaps the individuals can't have on their own or can't bring with them on their own. And people should know who's in that complex. It's important for you to know who your neighbors are and what their limitations are, so that you're going to be worried about yourself certainly, but if someone asks you, is everyone around you okay, that you'll know who should be checked on after an earthquake.
It's actually, what you asked is an interesting question. It's interesting because if we have, as we do, large pockets of people in their senior years, they certainly have unique needs. Different than in an area where they don't have a large concentration of the senior living facilities. But in general, disasters, including earthquake disasters, bring out the absolute best in humanity. And most people in earthquakes, 95% of the people who are rescued around the world are rescued by other earthquake victims. And people help each other. And so I'm sure there'll be a lot of that. But it's an issue where everyone's too old to help anyone else.
One thing that's really important is that you know what your prescriptions are. You have a copy of the written prescription somewhere, so that if you're not able to get to where you keep your medications, that you can go get additional supplies, or even keep additional supplies in your car or somewhere else.
In the video just now, it showed that people were storing things in their home, outside. I always worry about whether or not I have things stored in the right place. Most of my things are in my garage.
Well, think about
how do you choose?
Well, in a perfect world, think about your daily routine, and say you're at home, you're in your car, or you're at work. You have some type of emergency preparation kit and supplies in each of those places. I know I spend way too many hours in the office, and fortunately I have a nice big wooden desk, and I'll get underneath it if we even feel something in Sacramento at some point. But I have space under that desk for a flashlight and some water, and so I think about where your daily routine is. Where do you spend most of your time, and try to put those supplies there.
I understand that, but I think what I meant was within my home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What is it better to put it in your home versus in your garage, or is it better to put it out by the pool in a pool storage container? I mean, I saw a little bit of everything.
I think it's hard for us to know what's going to happen to your house in advance. I would say have the supplies somewhere. Inside is probably going to be okay, as I mentioned earlier. Even though the shaking is going to be strong and last long, you're not going to have a lot of your homes severely damaged. The stuff inside will be falling around if it's not secure. Perhaps ideally outside in one of those containers like we said. Now the other thing is you don't necessarily have to have it all in one place. You likely have a lot of what you're going to need after an earthquake already in your home, in your kitchen, in your pantries, in your closets. Just have the stuff is the important thing. And if you can upgrade to having it in a good place or outside in a fancy box, do that. But the important thing is don't wait until you have the right place to put it. Just get the stuff. Garage is okay.
Just don't put all your eggs or supplies in one basket.
Yeah.
Can you use the pool water?
Wait, can you hold that closer to you?
Can you use the water in the pool?
Can you drink the water out of your pool?
You can use the water in your pool, but not for drinking. But you're going to need water for other things. You're going to need it for sanitation. You're going to need it for perhaps even for cooling, and wetting towels that you can put to kind of act as air conditioning if the earthquake happens in the summer. But really, it's not recommended that you drink that water because of all the chemicals in it. You can boil it. There's
Yes, right here.
So I thought I saw that there's some type of pill that you can put in the water, and you can drink the water from the pool that way.
Yeah, I
And
think
what
There
about
are
that
purification
pill?
products.
There's different purifications
But
that you can
isn't there a tablet you can put in the water and then you can drink it?
Pool water, yeah.
That's what I see.
If I had to make a recommendation, it would be any water or liquid you want to drink should be water you store for that purpose, rather than rely on water in your pool. Pardon?
Well, a lot. Well, a lot of this, I think what we're recommending here are steps in a process. It's first step, second step, third step. I mean, in a perfect scenario, you have all of that. I think that's what we're obviously trying to recommend.
Obviously, if you have no other source, if you cannot get to any other water, but there are products that will purify water, and again, the vendors out front have a lot of details on that sort of thing that you can check into. There's another question over here, and then from Fred.
If you're predicting the earthquake to last 2 minutes, what Richter scale would you say that would be?
That's for a magnitude 7.8 earthquake. That's roughly 32 times smaller than the earthquake that happened in Chile and 16 times bigger than the earthquake that happened in Haiti. However, your buildings are built much better, certainly than those in Haiti, and of different materials.
But probably not as well as Chile.
Well, no, better than Chile.
They get earthquakes all the time.
They do. Yeah, but our building codes, as in Chile, are pretty well. They just it was a much larger earthquake, and they have more block buildings than wood buildings like we have here. So it's also not only building codes, but the types of construction and materials used. So that yes, 2 minutes of shaking as the earthquake ruptures along the fault from the Salton Sea down at Bombay Beach, all the way up past Palmdale is where that earthquake's going to end up.
Is there another fault line in here also?
There are many faults in the area. Just on the other side of the San Jacinto Mountains here, the San Jacinto Fault is the state's second largest fault and capable of having large earthquakes that will shake this area also.
Yeah, over here.
Nobody's talked about the possibility of fires as yet. Likelihood is that gas lines are going to rupture and you're going to have fires. I don't think you can depend on the city to put out all fires because they'll be widespread. How do you suggest we handle it?
Well, part of the planning that we've done along with Dr. Maletti and Mark when we did this earthquake Golden Guardian exercise in 2008 and the shakeout scenario, it did show that in Southern California as a whole, there will probably be about 1,600 or 1,700 significant size fires if we have this type of earthquake, which is going to happen at some point in time. And you're right, it is going to overwhelm the local fire services. And it'll take some time, even with a robust mutual aid system that we do have here in California, which is better than anywhere else in this country and arguably the world. That's one of the reasons I love seeing a packed room here to get the word out. For part of the emergency planning is to know where your gas line is and turn it off. If we get each and every house to do that, it would...
If you smell or hear a gas leak,
right,
turn off your gas. If you don't, leave it on.
But know where it is.
Know where it is.
Know where it is.
And don't automatically turn it off because it will.
We're only going to take a couple more questions because we do have to get to the next segment of the film.
Answer one more thing on the fire issue, though. Have a fire extinguisher and know how to use it.
Right.
You can stop those small fires from spreading and becoming big fires.
That's really important.
There is a device you can put on the gas line coming into your house, which will turn off the gas during an earthquake.
Yeah, the automatic shut-off valve.
Automatic shut-off.
That's good to invest in.
Yes.
Is there any way you can require that on houses?
We were thinking of doing that at the Seismic Safety Commission. You know, our state has over 200 laws, and it just wasn't going to float. So it's not required, but I think anyone that knows about earthquakes would strongly encourage anyone who owns a home in California that has gas to get an earthquake shut-off valve.
And they're not terribly expensive, and it's something.
You have to be careful. I have a friend that paid 2 or 3 times more than they should have for it, and they got taken a little advantage of. So get a couple of estimates from a few different plumbers.
Let's go ahead and watch segment 4, and we'll come back to questions. Segment 4, let's roll that.
Step 4, secure your building and finances.
Some houses are not safe as they could be. Whether you are a homeowner, renter, or a business owner, there are things that you can do to improve the structural integrity of your home. Some of the things you might consider are checking foundations that need to be bolted down. Consult a contractor or an engineer to help you identify your building's weaknesses and begin to fix them. How much earthquake insurance should you have? Can you afford to replace your household possessions? How much would they cost?
Let me put it this way. You live in California, and if you took 3/4 of your financial assets, converted them to cold cash, would you go put them in a bank that's not insured by the FDIC so that if the bank goes broke, you get your money back? You wouldn't, would you? Well, having 3/4 of your assets in your home, if you live in California in this valley, and an earthquake could happen that could take away part of that financial asset from you. It's just as silly as putting money in a bank not insured by the FDIC, in my opinion.
I believe that was a strong recommendation for earthquake insurance.
A better recommendation is to be filthy rich. You don't need insurance.
Even if you can be rich and not be filthy, it's okay.
I meant really rich.
Whether you're rich or you're poor, it's always nice to have money. Do we have any? Fred, you have a question in the back.
Thank you. Of the major utilities that come into our homes, not including TV, which ones are most likely to survive and which ones are the most prone to damage?
Well, it's where it comes into your house, and it's also the overall network of the utilities. I believe that the electrical network has had so much improvements done to it and retrofitting and such that likely is we're going to get our power back on really quick. The water may take longer because a lot of our pipelines in the region, not just the aqueducts bringing the water here, but all the pipes in the streets. Some of them, maybe not out here so much, but are over 100 years old and vulnerable to the shaking. And they have to then dig up the streets and rebuild those pipes. And apparently there aren't enough pipes in the country every year to rebuild all the pipes that will have to be, enough pipes made in the country each year to rebuild all the pipes that we'll need here. So water will take longer. Gas, will take maybe somewhere in between.
And I want to point out that there's something unique about electricity in Rancho Mirage. All of our electrical wires are buried. There are no poles. And things underground tend to break less in earthquakes than things up in the air. And so that would make them less prone to seismic resistance. And whether they knew it or not, we can thank our city council for making that decision. However, hold on. There's just one more little piece. That could not be all a blessing. One thing to pay attention to is when the electricity comes back on, if you're not home and you left the lights on and lamps have fallen over and there are bare bulbs on your couch, a lot of fires after earthquakes start that way. So it's a good idea to, if you're going to leave your home, to I don't want to say put the lamp back up because it could fall back over in an aftershock, but turn the switches off.
If you have a lamp that fell over and broke, unplug it while the power's still out. Well, you could do that, but then you'd have all the power out in your house. We're talking, in this case, a broken lamp. But you can do that too. But then you want to be careful when you turn it back on that you've looked at everything that might cause a fire.
Any other questions about that? Yes.
Testing. I try to encourage my clients to have an extra copy of their deed or purchase for their home, because if it's not going to be available, you're not going to be able to get the insurance company to pay. You're going to have to prove that you own the home. So you should have extra copies of all the important documents, and probably have cash on hand in small bills so you don't get taken for $100 for a gallon of water because you don't have a $5 bill to pay for it.
Well, and you mentioned the money factor. If power's out, someone's going to go, I need some cash. You walk to the ATM machine, it may not be working either.
Yeah. Take all your important documents and scan them, and then put them in a file, put them on a thumb drive, and that's very important to do. And you could even send the file with all your documents, your deeds, your prescription medicines, your high school diploma, anything that you have in writing. Send it to somebody you trust in Minnesota or somewhere else so
Which
that you can access it.
Goes back to that family and personal communication plan. That can all be a part of that. Have that trusted contact somewhere else.
So this step is step 4 is really about making sure that your house is secured so that it won't fall down. And for the most part, homes out here built since the 70s are all bolted to their foundation so they'll move with the ground rather than not with the ground. Like, you don't want that ground over there while your house is over here. You want to be moving with it. That's what the bolting is for. If you have an older home, that's where you especially want to be looking at, is it as secure as it could be? Also, there's I've heard the rumor out here that your houses, you're all okay because your houses are built on sand. Many of you heard this rumor? Yes. Maybe people have told you this. It's actually the opposite. Because of all the sand, you'll shake around like a bowl of jelly more out here than if you're on hard rock, where the waves will just kind of pass on through and you won't be shaking anymore. So you want to make sure that either your house is newer or if it's older that you get it looked at so that it's as strong as it can be.
Question in the back.
Utility poles or wires are underground. What about I'm Frank Sinatra and Dinah Shore?
Well, and then down the block from me, but you should talk to the city council about that.
Question here. And
I can answer that. Would you want me to answer that question?
By all means.
Sure. The lines that are still above ground are the transmission lines that come into the city, which bring the power from the main grid into the substations. What we undergrounded was the distribution lines. The transmission lines cost about $8 million a mile to underground. So there's currently, we're not going to be looking at funding that right now. Sometime in the future, maybe.
I'm in favor of not funding that right now at $8 million. What is it? $8 million a mile? Wow. We have a question over here, and then it's down front. Let's get a microphone to you, sir, so everybody can hear you.
How about the safety of high rises, like a desert island community, for example? There are 6, 7 floors.
I would recommend that you don't let any of us answer that question. There are professionals that are earthquake engineers that could come out for a very reasonable fee and look at a high-rise building and tell the owners of that building exactly what's so with it. And then you'd have a professional opinion that's based on the actual structure you're talking about. And for any of you who are concerned about high rises, low rises, or one-story homes, or even mobile homes, have someone who knows about those things look at it and give you expert advice. That's the best recommendation I think we could make, because it really is a location-specific, building-specific interaction that determines earthquake resistance. And there's no basis for talking about things generically.
Okay, let's move on to segment 5, and we'll have more questions and answers right after that. Segment 5, please.
Step 5, drop, cover, and hold on.
Drop, cover, and hold on. Drop to the floor, take cover under a sturdy desk or table, and hold on to it firmly. Be prepared to move with it until it stops shaking. If you are in bed, hold on and stay there, protecting your head with a pillow. You are less likely to be injured staying where you are. In a high rise, drop cover and hold on. Avoid windows and other hazards. Do not use elevators. Outdoors, move to a clear area if you can safely do so. Avoid power lines, trees, and other potential hazards. Driving, pull over to the side of the road and stop. Avoid overpasses, bridges, and other potential hazards. Theater, stay in your seat and protect your head and neck with your arms.
At the top of the list, I would say practice dropping to the ground, covering your head and body under a heavy table and desk, and holding on to the leg of that table or desk so that as the earthquake has it try to move across the room, you move with it, and you keep that protective shelter above you. And don't just think it sounds like something you can do. I actually did it for the first time about a year ago, and I needed to practice quite a bit to be able to, well, even just get down on the ground.
Drop, cover, and hold on that's a typical Saturday night at the Evans household, but the rest of you might need to practice that. We have a question down front.
I was wanting to know if you're in a mobile home and an earthquake hits and you're told to drop, cover, and get down. I've seen little pamphlets that they have from the City Preparedness Group Council that says if you're in a mobile home and what happens, you're not supposed to drop and cover because the piers can come up through the floor. So that might not be really safe to do in a mobile home according to these pamphlets you guys have put out.
Again, like Dennis mentioned in the last question, you want to know the mobile home. Some mobile homes have been retrofitted so that they're better connected, the piers won't come up. I've heard that. I don't know if that has happened so much, but you just want to know generally in this question what to do during an earthquake. You want to know what your situation is wherever you're at. And like right now, where we're at here, what's above us that might fall? What type of building this is? This is a brand new building. I mean, it's a couple years old, right? It's built to the latest standards and codes. Probably not going to, very unlikely it's going to collapse, but things are going to be falling. In a mobile home, know what type of mobile home you're in and what you're going to need to do.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Initially, I'd like to thank the City of Rancho Mirage and all of you for your information today. It's very insightful. I've had emails on the triangle of life suggesting that you stand or you sit next to a desk rather than under it next to it so that things will hopefully fall on an angle. Is there any validity to that?
Well, Mark and I have been dealing a lot with this one the last couple of weeks.
Couple of years,
yeah.
In my case. Have any of you who've heard about the triangle of life? All right.
Okay, good.
The triangle of life is one of the most dangerous things that you can do in an earthquake. And it's promoted by someone who claims to be an expert and is not.
Right.
And has been proven to be a fraud, essentially. Basically someone who goes to disaster scenes and gets videotaped of him rescuing someone and so that he can have this proof that he's done this. And he really hasn't rescued the person. He's kind of come in at the last minute. And it funds his travel around the world to go and have this career. So it's based on the notion and some wrong notions. And it really sounds reasonable, and that's the problem. But Because he says he's an expert one thing, and then he describes what sounds reasonable. But it's based on some wrong notions. It's based on the notion that every time an earthquake happens, your building is going to collapse. And not only is it going to collapse, it's going to collapse like a pancake, flat. And if there's a table there, that it's going to collapse the table. And that's another notion that's not necessarily true, that the ceiling is going to collapse the table. So that there's going to be spots around the table where if you were next to the table, you'd be safe. But we can't predict exactly where those spots are going to be. And usually, earthquakes don't cause pancake collapse like flat down. There's an angle to it. And I don't know, if I ended up being on that side rather than that side, you're out of luck. So our buildings don't collapse. They don't collapse, especially here in California. They don't always collapse. And they don't always collapse the furniture, and you can't always predict where you're going to be. Another aspect of it is it says while driving and you feel an earthquake, get out, stop your car, get out of your car, and lay down next to your car, right? Because in the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake in San Francisco, there were those double-decker freeways, and people were crushed in that. I don't know how many of you drive on double-decker freeways in your daily life out here, or anywhere in California anymore. We just don't have that. But he says no matter where you're out here on 111, stop your car and get out of your car. I just hope that if you do that, the drivers behind you read the same email and aren't swerving around your parked car and running into you. So that email has on and on and on bad recommendations that are very dangerous. Drop, cover, hold on is designed to protect you from the things that will be falling. And if you're sitting next to the table, all the things above you and around you might fall on you. Also, one thing, those pictures we're seeing in Haiti and Chile, even though maybe there's building collapse, it sometimes collapses in small pieces, breaks up, small pieces that can land in that spot. So we have a website on the earthquakecountry.org webpage that answers this, and if you ever get that email, please send it back to the person who sent it to you, that go to this webpage and read about this.
Earthquakecountry.org.
Earthquakecountry.org.
Earthquake
and it's on
Country.
the back of this booklet that's in your handouts.
That's in the bag.
It's in the bag.
So.
And make sure that the people that have sent that to you send out that to everybody they sent to, because they probably sent it to 50 or 60 or 70 people.
Right, and you see those emails all the time.
And we're beginning to get, just if I may add, Larry Collins is the battalion chief of the LA County Urban Search and Rescue Team that just came back from Haiti a few weeks ago, and they're on standby yet as we speak to go to Chile. There's some anecdotal evidence and some picture evidence that they have brought back as well that refutes the triangle of life and does sustain our belief in drop, cover, and hold, that even in some of these poorly constructed buildings in Haiti, people got under their desks and survived, even though the building, because they were down, they had covered their head. And again, a head injury is probably going to be the most likely cause of any kind of injury or death. So there's a lot of this evidence that we're starting to see as we get this out of Haiti.
Drop, cover, and hold on is the recommendation. We have a couple of questions. Let's go back here.
Yes, I have a question. Years ago, they used to say go to a door frame. And now what is when you have structure around the frame of a door in that area, why do they not recommend that anymore?
The buildings used to be built such that the doorways were stronger. There was extra wood. Modern buildings, that's really not the case anymore, the whole structure of the building. And we know now that more of your injuries, as Dennis mentioned earlier, are caused by things falling in your space than this room itself collapsing. And the doorway just is not going to protect you from things falling around you. You're also likely, in this big earthquake we're talking about here, not going to be able to stand up and hold on in that doorway. You're just not going to be strong enough to resist the force flinging you around. So you want to get down as soon as you can.
Do not run outside, do not get in a doorway, and do not get in the triangle of life. Drop, cover, and hold on.
Okay, two more quick questions, and then we'll go to the next segment, segment 6. Here, and then back over to Fred.
Well, part of the problem in Haiti and also in Chile is getting the supplies in, and I can see where we have this 10, which is the only way in and out of here. And if that's damaged, how are we going to get things?
Oh, we addressed supplies in the scenario. Your national and state government brought together a team of the world's leading experts, 100 of them, in every discipline. And we described this event as best as you possibly could within reason. And the advice is be ready to be on your own for 7 to 10 days. It may be 6 days before outside help can get in. We know there's going to be a 20 to 40 foot offset on the San Andreas, that the Interstate 10 is on top of the San Andreas in 2 places, south of us and north of us, just south of us and just north of us. We're camping in the middle of the desert. And so eventually people will get in. California's emergency response is as good as it gets in the world. Florida may be a very close second, but it's as good as it is here. And we need to be on our own be ready to be on our own.
And on your own, it means on your own by yourself, but it also means on your own in your community. You know, if you're all prepared and your neighbors aren't, that's going to affect your life after the earthquake, because you're going to need to be helping them, or they may have to leave and move out, and you're going to be all alone. Your quality of life is going to change. So be prepared with your community as well.
One last question, and then we'll
go ahead.
Go ahead, Jay.
Well, I was just going to say, with the help of gentlemen like this, we at the California Emergency Management Agency, and in coordination with FEMA, plan every day to try to make our response more rigorous, more advanced as quickly as possible. But it is just a reality of human life and the conditions we live in on the earth, that it's not, people are going to expect everything to be restored in a day or two. It's just not going to happen.
One last thing on drop, cover, and hold on. As Dennis mentioned, it's very important that you practice drop, cover, hold on. And each year now there's an opportunity that the whole state has called the Great California Shakeout Earthquake Drill. How many of you knew about the shakeout from last year? Great. So this coming October 21st, the whole state will be practicing what to do. Certainly you can do it before then, but you can go to the website shakeout.org and get information. You can do it as individuals, you can do it as your communities, as your businesses, as your faith-based communities. All of those groups can take that opportunity, and we're not going to have a real earthquake necessarily before then. We could, but this is our chance to practice what to do to protect yourself.
Let's get this last question here, and then we've got 2 more segments of the film. Remember, we'll have more time for question and answer. Yes, ma'am.
I have a large dining room table, but it's right beside a large sliding glass door. Is that not a good idea to go underneath it? Because it's a sturdy big table, but it's like 2 feet from glass.
Not as good an idea somewhere else perhaps, but if you have your blinds closed or shades, then it'd probably be okay. The glass won't be coming at you there.
Okay, let's go ahead to segment 6, and we'll take some more questions. Segment 6, please roll that.
Step 6, check for injuries and damages.
Now today I'm here to talk to you about damages and injuries that occur as a result of earthquakes. One of the things that we learned from the Loma Prieta earthquake is that people that had CPR and CERT training were better equipped to deal with the circumstances and fared a lot better as a result of what arose from the earthquake. You should all be aware that damages occurred during an earthquake, some more critical than others. Fire, for instance. I would recommend that everybody go out and have at least 1, maybe 2 fire extinguishers at home. That puts you in a position to be able to put out small fires and keep them from spreading and becoming a major issue. Another damage you might incur is a gas leak. You should know how to be able to turn off your gas valve. If you smell gas, or if you hear hissing of gas, whether it's coming from inside the house or by the gas meter, that's a sign to turn it off. Don't try to turn it back on. Contact the gas company and let the professionals do it. It's a possibility there may be down power lines. Approach all power lines as though they're still energized. Stay away from power lines. Don't touch them. Don't touch any objects that may be touching them. Chemical spills. Use extreme caution with them. You have to clean them up, and you should. But if you're dealing with items such as bleach, petroleum products, lye, what you want to use there is dirt to absorb the chemical. You can also use cat litter. Keep your hands from coming in contact with these types of chemicals, as they can be harmful and dangerous to you.
So close to step 7. We're almost there. All right. We have a question in the back. Nini.
Is there anything that we can do to make the big glass sliders safer now?
Well, there is safety film that can be put on glass, and most sliding glass doors have some level of safety film already. But you have to make sure it's properly put on, and you need an expert on doing that.
And there's two ways to think about the safety of glass sliders. If you have a home that has massive walls of glass, just realize that that glass doesn't have the strength to hold the roof up quite as much as if it were a wall. And so you might want to explore ways of seeing if that needs to be reinforced to prevent partial collapse of the roof. If you had one of those extreme homes where glass is on 3 walls, we have them in the desert. And there are very attractive ways of retrofitting houses like that make them even more beautiful simply by going out into the yards and putting the bracing 10 feet further out. But you need an engineer to decide whether that's warranted or needed or not. It's not just about the glass breaking, but also about how that glass interacts with the rest of the structure.
But in terms of the sliders and that sort of thing, just your average windows or sliders, having the shade drawn will help protect you from flying glass if you are inside the home. That's one of the recommendations we've seen tonight.
Right.
Yeah, I don't like that recommendation. I like looking at my view when I fall asleep. You have to make choices in life.
One thing that you want to think about too is that, types of retrofitting Dennis is talking about, adding braces and such, that may not sound like attractive in your home or something. But a lot of the research that Dennis shows is that people get prepared when they see other people getting prepared. And if you consider yourself a very prepared person, the best thing you can do to get your neighborhood prepared is when you have dinner parties and others, is to show people what you've done on all of these steps. Show people your kits. Show people that you've secured things. Show people how you've secured the glass and done this thing, because that will get them to get prepared.
I give people a cocktail when they come to the house and ask them to shake a statue, and it doesn't move. They really like it.
I'm coming to your house after this.
Exactly.
Yes.
I thank you so much. Year after year, this information is just invaluable. I'm sure that I, like a lot of folks, have family in Los Angeles and Orange counties, and I spend a lot of time on the 10 and the 60. Are there driving tips that, if it starts, that one should do, and especially if you're...
I don't know if everybody heard that, but if you're driving in your vehicle, are there tips that can help keep you safe?
Stop driving. Stop the car.
Driving.
Pull over to the side of the road. Make sure you're not under an overpass, and just wait for the shaking to stop. And then as you proceed, obviously, be on the lookout for bridges that may have fallen. Don't be going 60 miles an hour down the freeway, and all sorts of other things that might be on the roads.
And again, stay in your car.
Okay, we have a question in the back, gentleman with his hand raised, and then we'll go on to segment 7.
What if you're on the overpass?
Pray.
Well,
now
timing is everything, isn't it?
Well, number one, it depends on who owns it. If the state of California owns it, our department, Caltrans, has spent mega amounts of money retrofitting our freeways and our bridges, and we as a resident of this state need to be really proud of what the state has done to make those bridges as strong as they can be. It doesn't mean one of them won't experience some trouble in an earthquake. However, if it's owned by a county rather than the state, or if it's owned by a city rather than a county, it depends on how seriously those political entities take retrofitting bridges. It's the smaller the level of government, the lower the salience of earthquake hazard mitigation. It's just a fact of life. And so the answer to your question, which was a great question, depends on who owns the bridge you're on.
There's a plaque on most of them. If you read it, just drive slow, you can see, and you'll know. It's usually right there.
There's a certain there's a certain amount of common sense. I mean, if you're almost to the end of the overpass,
don't stay on.
Get off the overpass.
Get off. If you're just starting to get on it and you stop and it's safe to back up 5 or 10 feet very quickly, you've got to use some common sense in here.
The first jolt of an earthquake, the size of an earthquake, is likely not going to be the one that knocks down that overpass. It's going to be the violent shaking that comes after that jolt. So you should have a little time, if you notice it while driving, to get off the overpass.
Yeah, and I want to add for people so they understand, earthquakes have warnings, but you have to pay attention to nature. So you know that moment when you say, oh, is that an earthquake? Oh yeah, I'll just stay where I am and hope it stops. That's the warning. You have an opportunity then, if you feel it in your car, to stop your car, if you're on a bridge, to get off the bridge, or that's when you can get under a heavy table.
It's just like lightning and thunder. There's two different kinds of waves. Just as in lightning and thunder, you see the flash, and then some number of seconds later, you hear the thunder. In an earthquake, you'll feel that sharp jolt, and then some number of seconds later, you'll start to feel the real strong shaking. If you're really close to where the earthquake started, it's going to be really close together. The farther away you are, the longer it will be. This is why you're pretty close to where this epicenter of a big earthquake on the San Andreas is going to be, though. But over in Los Angeles, we're going to have more warning time.
All right, let's go ahead and watch segment 7, because I've got to get back into the 11 o'clock. So let's go ahead and roll the last segment of the film.
Step 7, communicate and recover.
We created the 7 steps to earthquake safety to make it easier for people to know how to prepare, protect, and recover from major earthquakes. And it's the 7th step which really brings it all home. All that you've done in the first 6 steps has prepared you to more quickly and with less cost recover from the earthquakes that are going to happen. And it's the 7th step where you're going to not have the headaches that many people might have because of what you've done to prepare yourself before and during the earthquake.
Turn on your portable or car radio for information and safety advisories. Check on the conditions of your neighbors. Until you're sure there are no gas leaks, do not use open flames. Never use the following indoors: camp stoves, gas lanterns or heaters, gas or charcoal grills, or gas generators. These can release deadly carbon monoxide or be a fire hazard and aftershocks. If the power is off, plan meals to use up refrigerated and frozen foods first. If you keep the door closed, food in your freezer may be good for a couple of days. If your water is off or has no pressure, or you think it's unsafe, you can drink water from heaters, melted ice cubes, or canned vegetables. Avoid drinking water from swimming pools or spas. Don't eat or drink anything from open containers that's near shattered glass. I want to thank all of you for listening to what we had to share with you today. I enjoy living in Rancho Mirage, and I've enjoyed helping share with you the information we have about the earthquake we face and how to get ready for it, and introducing you to some of the people that have done the research and have the expertise that we've shared with you. Thanks for your attention, and thanks for thinking Rancho Mirage is as beautiful a place as I do.
Before we finish with our questions and answers, I would like to introduce Jay Allen, who is the Director of Communications with the California Emergency Management Agency. He's going to give us a few tips and speak to us for a couple of moments, and then we'll finish up with some more questions and answers. Jay?
Well, first and foremost, on behalf of my ultimate boss, Governor Schwarzenegger, thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules and your evenings for being here. one of the things, just a brief background, the California Emergency Management Agency is actually, I think, the second newest agency in the state. Last year, it was formed with the merger of the former Governor's Office of Homeland Security, of which I was a deputy director, and the old Governor's Office of Emergency Services. OES was the entity that responded to and helped recover from any kind of event. Obviously, Homeland Security, we dealt with terrorism, counterterrorism, and very much, obviously, on the prevention side. With the merger, I think it really does speak to improving California's ability not only to prevent what we can prevent and mitigate what we can mitigate in man-made or natural disasters, but it also helps us with the recovery process. One of the things, as Dennis and Mark have mentioned, the shakeout and the earthquake scenario from 2008, one of the things we do well, in fact, we do it better than the federal government. In fact, the federal government pretty much canceled their national exercise. They're still trying to come up with a plan to have something this spring. Every year, we do an exercise called the Golden Guardian training exercise, where we practice a scenario, and we take turns every year of a natural disaster or a man-made terrorist attack. In 2006, we tested earthquake capabilities in the Bay Area. In 2008, it was the Great Shakeout scenario here in Southern California, and we had more than 5,000, almost 6,000 first responders from around this area, from San Diego and Los Angeles, take part in that exercise, and it was obviously held in conjunction with the first shakeout, where we had, I think, 5.5 million the first year and about 6.9 million this year. So one of the things I think you can be proud of for what we do at this state is we have the best first responders in the world. You've heard my boss say that before, and I'm not going to say it in his accent because this is on, and I do like my job and I'd like to keep it. He does the best imitation of himself. So we really do. But what he has said is plans are only good if you practice them. You have to practice. Practice makes perfect. It's one of the things he has said that has gotten him, whether you agree, disagree with his politics of late, you can't argue with the fact that he's been very successful at a lot of things in life. And practice does make perfect. We do this better than anyone, I think, in this state. And these exercises go to that. We work very closely. Our job is to help local communities like Rancho Mirage. What do you need? How can we help? How can we bring those resources there? One of the other things that we have done to help build our recovery and response capabilities has entered into not only mutual aid within the state. We have mutual aid agreements now with all of our neighboring states, with British Columbia, with Mexico. We have had help, and we have helped folks in Greece, in Australia. So we have probably the most robust mutual aid response and recovery system. And one of the other things we've done is to work very closely with the private sector. The private sector is of huge importance in terms of not only just utilities, water, electricity, but we also have signed memorandums of understanding with large corporations such as UPS, Walmart, Target. These folks have stepped to the plate to offer their distribution chains, their trucks, their warehouses, some of their supplies. When we're talking about the need for water after some of this, after this event. Some of your corporate partners and corporate entities have really stepped up to the plate and done this state proud. So that's just a little bit of what we do. We have people every single day working on earthquake preparedness in our agency. They're helping to help local communities find weak spots, to help retrofit, to work with the Seismic Safety Commission, the California Earthquake Authority, with Mark's folks at USC. Another thing I'd like to point out, coming this Friday, we're going to be announcing, we had a study that was put together, I think it was with UCLA, but also,
Bruin.
yeah,
Work at USC.
Exactly. it's coming out Friday, again with the California Earthquake Authority and the California Volunteers on California's preparedness. And without getting into too many of the details of that, I think the bottom line of it is that we are better prepared than we were before, but we still have a ways to go. And meetings like this go a long way towards doing that. So again, on behalf of the Governor and Secretary Matthew Bettenhausen from the California Emergency Management Agency, I thank you for inviting me here, and thank you all for coming out.
There is a 2-minute segment of the film to conclude, and then we'll take questions. Let's roll the last segment of the film.
Kay, what am I supposed to do again?
What you do is drop, cover, and hold on. Wait a minute. Let me make this a little easier.
Oh, okay.
Hit it, boys! If you feel it shaking, what do?
Drop, cover, and hold on.
If you hear it rattling, what do?
Drop, cover, and hold on.
So if you feel it shaking and you hear it rattling,
drop, cover, and hold on.
Drop, cover, and hold on.
Drop, cover, and hold on.
The vendors are outside. If you have any questions, the panel will sit here for a few minutes. Come on up and ask those questions. Also remember that the Chamber of Commerce will be holding a business forum on earthquake preparedness tomorrow as well, and this will be on the city's website. Thank you all for coming out, and enjoy the rest of your evening.